Welcome back, everybody. I'm Glenn,
I'm Michael.
and this is Legally Speaking. And today we're going to talk about capital gains and basis and maybe rail on some Democrats a little bit.
What's a step up in basis? I hear our president might want to get rid of that.
So your basis is in any given asset what you paid for it, I guess. So it depends on what the asset is. But if I buy stock, if I buy $50,000 worth of stock in your company, my tax basis in that is $50,000. And if you do well and the price of that goes up and I sell it for $100,000, I have a $50,000 gain.
And so that would be taxable income to you, that additional $50,000.
Correct.
And that's taxable to you at the long-term capital gains rate, depending if you held it longer than a year.
If I held it long enough, right. So the removal of the step up in basis is going to become important if they do that, I think, for estate planning. Because on that same stock, if I own that when I died and I gave it, say to you, your basis would be the value at the date of my death. So you would get what's called a step up in basis to that value. So your tax basis would be $100,000 at my death if I gave it to you. So if you then turn around and sold it, your gain would be nominal. It would be nothing if it was the same price as what it was when I died. And so the removal of that step up in basis could be very punishing to people that stand to inherit assets that have a very low tax basis.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I think about is farm ground. So you've got somebody that has had a farm in the family for decades. And let's say grandpa bought the 400 acres for, I don't know, let's say $2,500 an acre back in the 70s or the 80s. Well, whenever he passes away and leaves that to somebody, under the current tax laws, that individual, if they went to sell the farm, so to speak, they would get a step up to the fair market value as of the date of grandpa's death. And then if they have the sale rather quickly after that, it's likely that, again, the gains would be nominal. But under President Biden's proposed tax plan, that individual would have capital gains of, let's use round numbers again. You had 400 acres and grandpa bought it for 2,500. If you sell it then after his death,
I'm gonna have to do some math on that one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that, but we'll say $10,000 an acre. If she sold it today, well, you've got a gain of $7,500 per acre that you'd have to pay your long-term capital gains. And I think when you were just looking at the different income thresholds for those long-term capital gains rate, and if you make, I think, between 40 and 445,000, your rate is 15%. But if you make over 445,000, it's up to 20%. Well, if you're selling a piece of farm real estate that large, it's going to be worth more than $445,000. So now you're going to have to pay the 20% capital gains tax on that increased amount above the $2,500 per acre, which could be severe. I mean, that's a way to really let the IRS get their hands in estates at that point.
How many acres were in your example?
400, I think.
So 400 times 7,500 gain would be 3 million. So at 20%, that's $600,000 in tax.
So now you've got, you're under the threshold for the state and federal estate tax levels, which is great. You did your estate planning correctly. You're still under those thresholds. But now when your beneficiaries inherit, if they wanted to sell immediately, they're going to have to take the tax hit. And even if they don't sell immediately, even worse, if they keep it for longer and it continues to appreciate, it's just going to snowball and accumulate the problem.
Yeah, it could be pretty punishing. And I know that a lot of people in that situation probably aren't going to want to sell right away, but there's some things I've read that don't give a lot of guidance on what should you do to plan for that. Some of the ideas I thought of is you can do what's called irrevocable life insurance trusts, where you buy a life insurance policy on your life that's sufficient to pay that tax. That would work as long as you can afford the premium on the policy. That could be pretty hefty depending on your age and health. Some of the other solutions that I've thought of are 1031 exchanges. Maybe if the beneficiary wanted to sell that, they could sell it and exchange that. And that's a whole process. It's probably for another day, but they could use the proceeds to buy something of a like kind in real estate. That would be business property in your example. You could buy a different farm, you could buy a investment condominium, something along those lines, but that would kick the can down the road. I mean, that doesn't solve the tax basis issue. You take the tax basis that you have in that.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that's great. It takes care of the problem now, but like you said before, there's not really any guidance out there of, in those situations, if we do a 1031 exchange, or we do have some other type of plan in effect where the sale is not going to be a recognized income right off the bat, does it continue on down the road? Do you have to hang on to grandpa's basis of $2,500 forever?
And I mean, as the owner of that, I guess you could plan for that, knowing that that your beneficiaries are going to take a hit if they sell it. So I mean, you could prevent that. You could put it into a trust and say, I don't want it to be sold, and I want the income to be paid to my beneficiaries, and maybe kick that can down the road to where we get some people in there that give a damn about the middle class and earning income and things like that haven't already earned theirs to punish everybody else, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess on that sense, I think we could write into our estate planning documents going forward that let's say we set up a trust, and one of the provisions in that trust is, upon a substantial change in the federal income tax laws, the trustees now have the authority to do X, Y, Z. And I think that may be something, like you said, kick the can down the road, but know that different administrations are going to come and go, and the laws are always going to be ever changing. And I think we would just need to give the individuals the authority to make those changes whenever the time comes.
Yeah, and usually, like most things, it's not as bad as what one side or the other wants. It's still got to pass, but it is a big deal, and I think it's one of those things that they could easily slip in there, and slip past people, because it's not going to be immediate. It's not like the income tax rate that they're going to propose to increase. It's going to affect you immediately. It's going to be something that may not affect somebody for years. I mean, decades even.
Yeah, let's take, for example, the owners of the Cubs. Right now, they could sell, and if their basis was, let's say, $1 trillion, they're probably worth about $1 million now, so they could roll over that loss for subsequent years.
Oh man, they are not worth $1 trillion right now.
No, not even close. But I mean, you think about it, if one of those owners of a sports franchise purchased I don't know, when did Mark Cuban buy the Mavericks? His basis in the Mavericks is probably, a very small fraction of what he could sell it for today. And if he passed away and that basketball team were passed down to his beneficiaries and they went to sell it to somebody, they're going to have a huge capital gain tax on that, or tax liability on that situation.
Well, Mark, if you're listening, we'd be happy to help you with that if you want to give us a call.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a potential issue. And I mean, I think it's early enough at this point where you can contact your congressman and tell them that this is a bad idea. This is a bad deal. Don't vote for this. But who knows? It's a proposal.
Well, the federal government tends to be printing a lot of money now, and they need to figure out how they're going to pay that back.
Remains to be seen. What else is going on? Not a lot of sports right now.
No, the Cubs are unwatchable. Cardinals put up like a couple touchdowns last night. I saw it was a bloodbath over there in Washington. Saw Schwarber and Starlin Castro play for the Nationals now. John Lester's on the COVID injury list.
Well, hopefully the Cubs will turn it around a little bit and give us something to watch the next couple months.
We'll see.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.